Hello everybody. Let me see if I can capture the impressions of the weekend for you. I overnighted this weekend in the mountains. I put on my pack, my tent, and my sleeping bag and headed off on foot. Took a train to get out of the immediate city, and then a bus. Bumped on a bus, bump up into the hills until the bus found a nice place to stop, as I always do. I just basically pick a place to stop. I didn't know where I was headed, and then began angling my way on foot deeper into the mountains. Always headed, my internal compass heading me towards the more remote places. And I had a really very interesting experience. It was very difficult at once, and also very eye-opening. The mountains, we had recently had Typhoon 15 come through, and it caused a lot of damage and sadly some deaths. And I wasn't aware that it had caused as much damage as it did in the mountains, namely through landslides, which had blocked roads, down power lines, destroyed farms, crushed houses, all the various things you can imagine. It was a very sad thing to see that had occurred up there. I was able to clamber over some mudslides and get higher in the mountains than the emergency crews had yet gone. And though the people were fine up there, the farmers, it's interesting to see how the farms seem to be built for the most part around the natural disasters. Maybe the wisdom of the ages of the past generations knew where to build the homes out of the reach of the slides and from the floodwaters. But the villages I passed through up in the higher mountains were largely intact, except they had no power and no phone and the like, and the people seemed to be fine. I wound up sleeping in beside a river, just outside of a small village. And because I wanted to experience what it would be like, I decided not to go any further. I camped there for that night for a specific reason. I wanted to see what it would be like after nightfall to experience a Japanese village in the mountains with basically no power or any artificial lights, no sounds of television, no radio, no basically nothing. Very few cars running. Traffic was blocked off. I thought it would be like a time machine back into the 19th century and further back. And indeed it was. I woke up, I stayed up into the night through the evening, watched the stars come out, and in particular woke up in the middle of the night to watch what was happening in the village. I walked around a little bit, and you could see there was just basically blackness everywhere. The darkness of the night, stars, brilliant stars across the sky. The clouds, rain had come in early in the evening, and the stars were just a brilliant canopy overhead. And there were basically no artificial lights. There were some lanterns coming from a few windows, soft murmurs of people's voices. It was indeed like going back in time. And I returned to my tent and went to sleep, and woke up the next morning and was happy to see by mid-morning the power had been restored and things were back to normal. So my little experience yielded an interesting benefit of experiencing a Japanese village as things may have once been 100 years ago or so, or maybe more recent than that, before the advent of modern power. It got me to thinking about how the great change that has occurred for people since that time to now, and specifically then for those people in the mountains whose children have left the mountains and have come down here to the city and live in this modern world, a more connected world, plugged into the internet and power and 24-hour entertainment and the long work days and the whole like, and disconnected from nature. And I thought about how humans are marching slowly or quickly away from our old way of being towards something new. Though that lifestyle in the mountains will soon be over. No one is interested in going up there, as I've mentioned in many of my videos, especially on the Softy Papa channel. Those people, that lifestyle is basically coming to an end. Those villages will be deserted. So, as I continued my walk after that, the next day I walked farther into the mountains. Then I left the villages behind and found a small farm road, a near-deserted farm road that led me into a new area of the mountains that I'd never explored, a vast and a beautiful valley up over the top that was completely deserted with empty farms, and it wound up at the end of a road at an amazing beautiful spot. I didn't take a lot of video. Mostly it was just soaking it in this time. And while I was up there, I was thinking about the further future of our species as we move forward, and this process continues at a more increased pace as we move forward with technology, and what will happen to us. And I listened to a podcast something I don't normally do up in the mountains. I prefer to listen to nature, but I sat down and I listened to a podcast, and it was very fitting. It was just perfect timing for that podcast. It was a podcast on Escape Pod, a science fiction podcast, and it was titled Reconfiguring the Thingamajig. Rejiggering the Thingamabob. That's what it is. Rejiggering the Thingamabob. And I'll put a link down below to it. And the podcast dealt with a particularly dilemma that was faced in the future by a descendant of ours. It wasn't a human being anymore. Genetic engineering had changed all that. It was basically a sentient life form of near human intelligence, the product of genetic engineering, but not a human itself, but from our race. And it was stranded on basically a space station on a planet. Well, not a space station, a planet teleport station for hyperspace travel, for basically faster than light travel. And the machine had broken, and the only other being on that little tiny station was an AI, an artificial intelligence. And they faced a dilemma. They couldn't get it fixed. They couldn't be fixed. It would take 11 years for a spaceship to arrive to fix it conventionally, because it couldn't be fixed by the AI. However, the AI could possibly fix it if the life form would go outside of the capsule there, outside of that little place there, and rejigger the thingamabob. Now, the reason the dilemma, why I would say it asked it to rejigger the thingamabob, that was the best language the AI could come up to explain to this life form what it was, because the thingamabob, the machine that was used for the faster than light travel, was a product of the AI, basically the population of AI, the supercomputers, faster and more intelligent than our minds computers that had developed. And there was no way that our puny minds or our equivalents could understand what it was. There was no language that had ever been made to describe it to the humans. It was basically a product simply of the AIs and something they managed. Likewise, what needed to be done to it, to rejigger it, was outside of our comprehension. So what a fascinating idea. The AI needs to enlist the help of a mere mortal and has no way to communicate what needs to be done or to adequately describe the thing that needs to be fixed, because it is outside of our capability to understand. We are not smart enough to understand it. And I just loved it, because I think that is indeed where we are headed with this process. What I saw in the mountains, how what the old life was like, and how people are living now, and what will be happening to the next generations as technology continues and becomes more integrated into their lives. And if you've seen my video, Immortal Cyborgs, what I think will happen is technology is integrated into our system, into our beings, and immortality is achieved, and probably the cessation of new, probably stop having babies, and just continue with a stable population of immortal cyborgs. And then their children will be the AI. The AI will be the super intelligent artificial machines, maybe partially biological if they integrate in with us, that will go forward. And the reason I wanted to share this with you was it was just an interesting series of events that occurred over the weekend, of finding myself transported back in time to a vision of old Japan up in the mountains, what it was like 100 years ago, with the silence and the quiet and the firelight and the lamps and the quiet voices and going to bed early and the simplicity of it all. And then struck back into the world when the power was turned on, and seeing things happening, being back under that landslide, the cars moving, the busyness of it all, coming back down here and seeing all of their children hard at work in this 24-hour lifestyle, busily operating with a more integrated society, and then thinking of the future, and then stimulated with the future with that podcast and that story that just rattled my brain and made me think. It was just a wonderful experience over the weekend of experience and thought and imagination and creativity input, giving light to what I think will be a vision of the future that none of us can truly predict, but it will be nonetheless as startling and as amazing and as probably as horrifying in many ways to our generation as the lifestyle that we live now may have been to someone 500 years ago. They may not conceive of how we live now. Take care, everybody. It's time for me to sign off and get to work. Thank you for sharing a little bit of my ramblings today from the ramblings of the weekend. Bye-bye. And the link below as soon as I can.